Hey, welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the weekly live webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with the mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, and BlueCap Productions. Tune in every Wednesday and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Mineral Talks Live. Today is Wednesday, March 17th. And we're thrilled that you can join us on today's show. Mineral Talks Live is the weekly mineral talk show broadcasting to you live every Wednesday. I'm Brian Swoboda, president of BlueCap Productions, and together with my magical partners, Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP, we're happy to see you. Our goal in producing this program has always been to bring together all the different facets of the mineral world, from curators and curatrix to collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and the media that serves us all. We hope that in doing so, we form a tighter bond among all of us and foster a deeper understanding of the work that everybody does in our community. Raquel, Eloise, and I try our best to bring a wide range of guests onto the show, and in doing so, we feel the show reflects the true global nature of our mineral world, and you too are part of that world. Your participation in the show helps to make it what it really is. It isn't just a live broadcast, it's an interactive live broadcast. So your participation during the show is what brings it to life. How can you interact? And that's a great question. There are actually two ways. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of buttons. There's one button labeled chat and another labeled Q&A. The chat feature allows you to type messages to everyone watching and participating in the show. So when you first sign on, feel free to fire off a chat message to everyone telling us where in the world you're tuning in from. Also, if you have thoughts or comments about things you're seeing in the show, this is how you can share those thoughts with others. During the interview, both Raquel and Eloise will be very active in those chats, so look for their comments and links along with everyone else's. When they feel it's appropriate, either Raquel or Eloise may turn on their mics and address us directly with questions that you're asking so we can get an immediate answer from our guests while they're still on the topic. Now, the second way to interact is with the Q&A function. This allows you to submit general questions that we'll try to answer at the very end of the interview. Finally, at about 40 minutes into the program, you may see a window pop up on your screen asking a bunch of questions for our weekly poll. This is one of our favorite parts of the show, as it allows us to learn small, random, and oftentimes interesting little facts about our guests. In the end, the show isn't only about minerals, it's about the people too, just like our hobby. And with that out of the way, let's get on with today's show. For today, we're heading back to Europe and setting our sights on the small country of Switzerland, located in the heart of the Alps. In the greater Zurich area, there's a mineral shop called Ziegler & Ziegler, and it's perhaps the most well-known and successful mineral shop in the entire country. The owner of the shop is a man that you may have seen around Tucson or perhaps some of the European mineral shows. He's tall, he's thin, and he's not only a mineral dealer, but he's also a strahler, one of the people that find their joy when they're up in the Alps looking for minerals. Is he more a mineral dealer or is he more of a strahler? We'll let you decide. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present Dr. Andreas Stucki. Andy, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How's the weather out there in Zurich right now?
It kind of sucks because it's been snowing like crazy today sometimes. And well, by late March, we're usually kind of fed up with winter. So yeah, we're ready for some warmer temperatures now.
Oh, I can totally imagine. I bet that first snowfall is absolutely pristine, as we all have this beautiful image of Switzerland in our mind. But after a few months, I understand how it can just be too much.
True. And we're getting a lot of snow in the Alps now as well. I think up to 3 feet now again. So there will be a lot of snow up there for a while.
Andy, when does it get dangerous in terms of potential avalanches?
Oh, depending on, where you are, it is. Actually, right now, it's actually pretty dangerous in quite a few places that are, off the beaten track.
Okay, so, but like a city like Zurich, it's never threatened by avalanches. Is that correct?
No, Switzerland's got which is probably half of the country is in really flat country where either you don't get snow or snow doesn't do much. But once you're up in the Alps, depending on, how steep it is, avalanches are always an issue.
Wow. Scary. Now, Andy, whenever I have a guest on the show, I like to turn back the clock a bit and understand how they first got into mineral collecting. Now, you grew up there in Switzerland, surrounded by the locations and culture for collecting. Do you remember the first mineral that caught your attention as a child?
Actually, it's not just a mineral, but it's a box of minerals that belonged to my great-grandparents. Oh. And I think I was maybe, 11 years old, 12 years old. Yeah, maybe 11 or 10, maybe even younger. And I was given that box, handed over from my grandparents or parents. And it was just the most amazing thing. And actually, I still have it with me. So
come on.
Let you have a quick look. It's got, all sorts of little colorful pieces of rock. Some are rough gems, some are just, pieces of agate. And it's all labeled, and it goes back to, I think, 1932. And of course, that got me jump-started on rocks.
That is absolutely beautiful. And from the quick glance that I got, it looks like it's not just Swiss minerals, it's kind of worldwide.
All over. It may actually originally be from France because it's all labeled in French. So back when I was 10 years old, I didn't really know what to do with it. But it's just rocks from all over the world. So, of course, that got me really started on rocks. But maybe on the other hand, at least in Switzerland, I think, the interest in crystals maybe somewhat ingrained, if that's the right word, because,
it's certainly part of the culture there. So, starting with that, and I have to say, beautifully presented a set of minerals in that box. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, here we tend to see a lot of minerals like in egg cartons, that kids would get at the mineral shows. But I love that box where everything's padded and has its own kind of area. But from that first exposure to the culture of crystals in Switzerland and to climbing the Swiss Alps and becoming like a strahler, digging into the clefts, how did that transition happen from being enthralled by the minerals to actually climbing in the mountains and looking for them, that field collecting part of your world?
I think probably another happening was a school trip when I was 12 years old. We were doing a 1-week school trip to central Switzerland. And of course, as a kid, up in these mountains, there may always be crystals. It's like I said, it's somewhat ingrained, the knowledge that there are crystals in the mountains. And we were doing a little, easy hike. And at some point, one of my classmates, he picked up a quartz crystal, maybe this big. And that was like, boy, just like that, you can find, a nicely shaped, clear crystal. I want to go look for crystals. I want to do that. And I want to get involved with minerals. I guess just like every kid at some point maybe thinks, that minerals are just too cool. Yeah. And the fact of, picking something up like that probably, added more to the appeal.
Well, I think that's fascinating because, as you say, it's ingrained in your brain, in the culture that, there are crystals up in the mountains, but actually going up there and watching your friend discover one and it really kind of kicking in that, oh my God, I always knew that there are crystals up in the mountain, but here we're finding them. That is a huge shift. It really opens the eyes. I wish I had a picture of you when you first saw it. I imagine your eyes were like this.
Well, could also be that I was super jealous. So maybe it was both, eyes lighting up But yeah, at the same time, oh, why didn't I find it?
That's when you had to learn the hard lesson when you turn to your
Right.
friend and say, I'm really glad for you.
Exactly.
Now,
Yep.
Andy, eventually you started pursuing your PhD from the Swiss Technical Institute, the
Mhm.
ETH. And that's actually where you first met Raquel, of all
Exactly.
people. Tell us how you eventually decided that that's an area that you wanted to focus, and tell us about what you studied.
Okay, well, like like I said, as at the age of what, 10, 12, I really got into rocks. Yeah, just like many kids do, but it just never let me go. So I just always thought, I want to do more with it, not just, collect rocks, but actually, learn more, do more with rocks. And so that meant, whenever there was time, do like little field trips in the area where minerals were found, easy stuff, go look for rocks. Yeah. And that at some point when I finished, we call it gymnasium, that would be probably like high school. It was always clear for me, that I wanted to study geology or earth sciences, how it's called here. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I at the ETH, which in Zurich, the Swiss Technical Institute, that's a pretty famous university for natural sciences, and that's where I got started almost 30 years ago. And my master's degree, that was about mapping a section of the northern Italian Alps. That's what most master students do, for their master's degree. They do a geological map of one little section in the Alps.
Okay.
And that involves, of course, a lot of field work, which means, you start to really, learn to move around also in, let's say, more tricky environments, more rugged terrain, and which, of course, I felt really comfortable with. And once I did that, well, I figured, it would be cool to add on a little more to that. There was a professor at the Institute of Mineralogy and Petrology who, he kind of, asked me, hey, you want to do a PhD for me? I got a really interesting topic for you. And by the way, he also kind of pulled Raquel into the same university for her PhD. But anyway, so then, I did my PhD. The topic, well, the title is a little complicated, but it's about like fragments of formerly oceanic rocks that kind of crop out in the southern Central Alps. Because in Jurassic and Cretaceous times, much or most of the Alps or our area was covered by an ocean, including mid-ocean ridges, just like between the American and European continent. And you get fragments of those rocks in our Alps.
Wow, that's really interesting. And then at some point, you met a man named Kirby Sieber, and we know Kirby, or at least I know Kirby, from the fossil world. And so I was fascinated to learn that it was you meeting Kirby that led you to become owner of this shop. So kind of unravel that a little bit, and then we're going to get to look at some minerals.
Sure. Well, it was, of course, the question, doing studies, doing a PhD, that's one thing, but how do you work? How do you get to work with nice rocks? And when you're in Switzerland, for me, well, it was kind of the obvious choice to try and join the professional outfit for minerals. And of course, that was the business Siber+Siber. And I actually started working there before I started my studies. So for 2 years, I worked there straight. And yeah, that's when I really got into the business. Kirby and his brother Eddie, they showed me the ropes, if that's the correct term.
Now, they were mineral dealers. They weren't into fossils at that time, correct?
Well, the business of Siber and Siber is you could call it a rock shop, but a serious rock shop, which always had minerals, but fossils were always a part of it too.
Okay.
And also cut stones, gems, even stone related jewelry is part of it. And so it's the whole thing that has to do with rocks. You could put it that way. And then when I worked there for, a couple years, Kirby's interest shifted more and more towards dinosaurs. And he opened the dinosaur museum next door. And yeah, more and more his business interests completely shifted to dinosaurs and the dinosaur museum, which also, made for a smooth transition, like me slowly taking over the business here, and 13 years ago, I took over running the business here.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, in that time, I tried to, kind of start evolving the business. Well, how would you say that? Do the things that we're good at, add things that make sense, like, building up a really nice collection of Swiss rocks, for instance.
Yeah. Well, now, Andy, you have a photo that you showed me earlier back when Kirby was traveling around the world a little bit more on the mineral side. I was hoping that maybe you could share that with the audience.
Sure will. Because when I told Kirby that I'm doing this interview, he said, he just happened to go through old photographs and he stumbled upon this photograph right here, which is of your father at, in Pala, in the tourmaline mines. I think down here, I think this guy, that would be Bill Larson.
Yeah.
Maybe
I love it. I love it. So
maybe
I never even knew that existed until this morning when you shared that photo with me. I'm thrilled. That's my father in the center image on the top row there. And and that was down at the collector's headquarters in Fallbrook on Live Oak Road, where they still are located today. That's great. Now, Andy, when we think of Swiss minerals, I think the first thing that comes to most people's mind is the quartz. And with the quartz, there are a few different Swiss quartz that are very famous. You have the Friedlander quartz, and then the special Gwindel and Tessen habitat habit quartz. For our audience, can you describe kind of some of these different forms and maybe show examples of each? And this is the part where we get a look at some great minerals.
Absolutely. Yeah, the thing is, of course, the Alps are famous for quartz, and quartz really dominates, what we get in terms of good minerals. We do have a few other things too, but yeah, quartz is what really matters. So if ever you see a Swiss collection, it'll be heavy in quartz. But I think what's really amazing is the variety we get. We do get pretty much all sorts of quartz types you can imagine, but the most famous being the so-called Friedlander quartz. I think the more scientific term would be the macro mosaic quartz, which means a single quartz crystal is kind of subdivided into parallel little sections. And this gives a quartz crystal just like a little bit more sparkle. And I try and show that on a piece like this. Like you can see here that the crystal faces aren't really as smooth as they would be like on a Arkansas quartz.
Sure, yeah.
But there's like like little sections that run mostly up and down. So, and if you move a quartz around, and a really classic Alpine quartz like this, you get just a little bit more sparkle, I think.
Absolutely. I call it the light dance. And so when we look at the faces of that quartz, we see that light dancing a whole lot more. It creates more of a dynamic look and feel to it, the sparkle, as you may say.
Yeah. So, and in some cases you get a really crazy piece. This is like a all doubly terminated Friedlander type quartz grown together. So yeah, if you move a piece like this around, it's like almost like a gem, like a big faceted gem.
Amazing.
And it goes all the way around. Of course, that's a really wild piece, but it kind of shows this Friedlander type quartz phenomenon quite well.
Absolutely beautiful.
And of course, what probably is most famous, and in that respect, this wasn't really a too typical example, is we get more smoky quartz than we get, pure white quartz. And this has to do with the fact that most our Alpine quartz has grown in granitic rocks, which are, they're slightly radioactive, meaning there's some level of radiation that throughout time, maybe millions of years, may cause little defects in the quartz that are visible as a smoky color. Now, that may be a little too technical, but the result is that in our granitic rocks, quartz is mostly of smoky color.
Now, the smoky quartz that comes from the Swiss Alps, it is in my head, it's more kind of a warm brown color instead of like, the really dark smoky quartz. Is that correct, or am I imagining things?
No, you're not imagining. Mostly it's from, a light smoky color to a nice saturated smoky color, like this maybe. Of course, depending on the light source, it may be a little. I'm putting a more classic flashlight. Depending on the light, it may still look a little, I don't know, not too ready, not too much like an amber color.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe you get a bit of an idea that this nice saturated smoky color is just plain nice, especially on, when it's growing on white colored granite like this.
Yeah, I was going to say just the contrast between the quartz and the matrix there just really makes it pop off and is just wonderful to see.
But do
you get like the Morion kind of quartz, the black quartz?
Yeah, we do get pitch black quartz as well. And I have some, so let me just real quick grab a piece.
I think the audience is just wondering, what kind of shop do you have when you're just looking around on the floor for pieces?
Yeah, I got the rocks all around me now. So, yeah, for instance, this is a nice example of, pretty much a pitch black piece, which would be called Morion. So even with a flashlight in the back, it doesn't show much, transparency. So that's probably as black as it can get.
Well, now, Andy, you have Morion, you have the lovely kind of warm, smoky, you have clear, and you have white quartz, all from the same mountain range. Do you know what the radioactive elements are that will change a white or clear quartz into a smoky or a Morion quartz?
I hope I'm not messing things up, but
Sorry to
granite.
put you on the spot.
That's okay. That's okay. Someone will correct me maybe, but I think granite always contains just a little bit of uranium. It's not enough for you to measure with a Geiger counter. So it's not like it's dangerous at all, but over the millions of years, it'll be enough to cause like some sort of an effect on quartz. So I think it's mostly uranium content and maybe some other radioactive element. Again, concentration is super low, but enough for it to do its job over a long enough time.
Now, are the smoky quartz found close to the clear or the white quartz, or are they usually separated by a good distance?
That's actually a good question, because we do have a general rule in the Central Alps that the whitest quartz in granite is found in the lowest elevations. And I do have an example here. So, this is again nice example for Alpine quartz, and it's pure white. This was found, at a low elevation, low meaning maybe 5,000 feet, 1,500 meters.
Mm-hmm.
While really, black colors like this, you don't find those below 9,000 feet usually.
Interesting. So the higher elevations, you find the darker quartz, the smoky and the moran.
And this doesn't have anything to do with, for instance, radiation coming from above, but this has to do with...
my next question.
Yeah. No, it has to do with, you would have to call it the geometry of the way our rocks are exposed right now. Has to do with, no, let me put it another way. If your quartz grows in granite, but the temperatures of formation are high enough, the higher temperatures will help the quartz to kind of recrystallize, or let's say the radiation damage will heal more easily. So that means a white quartz may have become smoky, but the temperatures were too high, so it could kind of heal at the higher temperatures. Did that kind of make sense?
So, sure, yeah. No, that's...
So I guess, morions that you find on 9,000, 10,000 feet elevation, they have formed, and they have probably, those sections of rock have gotten faster to lower temperatures where the quartz couldn't re-heal and turn lighter in color. Because the thing is, you could heat that one up and it would lose its color too, which also means it would kind of heal because of the temperature.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what about Gwindels? You have open and closed Gwindels, and Gwindel quartzes are so popular collector items, mainly in Europe. They're becoming more so in America, but talk about Gwindels and maybe show us some great examples.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, of course, a Gwindel is something weird. It's probably also the reason when the Tucson show when the convention center show had the topic mineral oddities, I knew I would have to bring Gwindels because they are a bit of an oddity. I mean, why, when you look at them, like for instance, a piece like this, why does quartz form, curved objects like this? So, this would be a nice example.
Fantastic piece. Yeah.
And so technically a Gwindel is like one doubly terminated quartz crystal stacked on top of the other. And every time you stack one on top, you twist it just a little bit. So the higher the Gwindel is, in with respect to its width, the more twist you usually get. And apparently the scientific explanation is that formation conditions weren't quite ideal in the solutions where these crystals grew. And Gwindel supposedly is the kind of type of growth quartz would do if, the environment isn't quite ideal in the solution. And funnily enough, this didn't happen in almost anywhere else in the world. Because, of course, the Alps are the place for Gwindels. There's, of course, a few more places worldwide, but I don't think quantity-wise anywhere else you'll find that many Gwindels, wherever you go. And then, of course, there's a bit of a systematics. You have open Gwindels, and open means you can see the individual points sticking out. So this is a pretty good classic example of an open Gwindel. And you get closed Gwindels where you don't have points, but it's more like a chisel kind of shape. There's still a twist. You can see when the light reflects, there's a twist to it. Or if I hold it like this, you may see there's a bit of a twist to it. And it's still not quite clear when you get those and when you get those, because you can have them both on the same piece of rock.
No kidding.
Yeah. There's like let's say there's an idea that every Gwindel starts as a closed Gwindel. And eventually, when it gets bigger, it gets more open. Right now, I can't think of a human analogy, but it starts closed and it gets more open as it gets bigger. But it doesn't quite make sense all the time because sometimes you get tiny open Gwindels and you can get pretty sizable closed ones too.
So in general, are open Gwindels wider or longer width-wise than closed Gwindels are?
Probably are. I think you can get more like closed Gwindels can be, they can be taller in relation to their width, maybe. But I don't think anyone's ever, systematically measured that. But in general, closed ones are much more rare and they're usually much smaller. So, this is considered to be a pretty big closed Gwindel.
Gotcha.
And if we're talking pretty big open Gwindel, it would probably be something. It would probably be, a honker like this.
Wow.
So, and the interesting thing is it's grown pretty much all over the rock here. So that's a pretty big one.
Fantastic.
And usually, maybe one more thing is, well, if you look at it here, at the bottom, the points go probably about this way. And at the top, they go about this way. So this gives you like an angle, a total rotation angle. And the most extreme Gwindels they may have a rotation angle of up to 90 degrees almost.
Wow.
But that's really extreme.
That's quite a lot. Now, do you have clear Gwindels and smoky Gwindels, and are they found at the different elevations? So the clear ones are lower and the smoky ones are higher?
Just correspondingly, you get pure white Gwindels in the lower elevations usually, and you can get pitch black, Morion Gwindels higher up usually. And the thing is, of course, which always strikes me as weird, I mean, you have those Gwindels and they can they can be on a perfectly, say, normal piece of quartz. There's really, there's really no reason you couldn't have, a Gwindel having grown on this piece here.
Huh.
So, and of course, that's what makes it still a little enigmatic. When do you get the Gwindels? When do you not get Gwindels? Because it may all be on the same piece.
Interesting. And in the pockets where you find the open and closed Gwindels together, are they generally of the same clarity or smokiness?
Yeah, usually one pocket pretty much has the same smokiness, if you want to call it that way. There are, of course, there's always exceptions, and some are actually quite incredible, where you have really a big variety of smoky colors. Like the piece that I showed here, this comes from one of the most famous clefts. Also commercially, it's one of the most famous clefts we had in the Swiss Alps. It's called the Rufibach cleft, which was worked from the 60s into the early 90s. And this cleft, this was a large system. And this produced, dark smoky colors like this, some even a little darker. But depending on where you were in the cleft, some crystals were almost colorless.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah.
Did the cleft go vertically or was it more horizontally? Is that a fair question?
Right now it's horizontal, but it's hard to tell, what the orientation was during formation. It could have, depending on what happened, because the Alps, when you look at the cross section of the Alps today, it's a pretty jumbled mess of rocks. And there was folding, there was rotation. So kind of hard to say, where it was when they formed. But today it's more or less horizontal.
Interesting. Now, Andy, you've got all kinds of great minerals I can see in the background there. Why don't you show us some of your other great pieces that you have on exhibit? And even if you wanted to wander around the shop a little bit and show us what it looks like, that'd be fun.
I think as a finale, I'll take you, take a little walk through at least this part of the shop as well. Yeah. So, I'm going to pick up some of the rocks that I find, either nice examples for Swiss minerals or, typical examples for any particular type of quartz that we have. So why not start with like the Tessin habit? Because, this is another like quartz habit that we get in the Alps, where you have quartz crystals with these steep pyramidal faces. So it looks like, they're like steep pyramids, and on top you get the classic pyramid faces. This is called the Tessin habit from the canton of Tessin in southern Switzerland. And this habit has to do with higher formation temperatures.
Now, do Tessin quartz only happen in the Swiss Alps?
No. Okay. You get those, for instance, in Nepal, you get really nice Tessin habit. But I guess we were the first to name them. So this name kind of sticks to wherever in the world they're being found.
Gotcha. Okay. As you're picking up other specimens, maybe Raquel or Eloise can launch the poll.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so let's...
You can close that window if it's blocking, and you're not supposed to read that yet.
I can just close it.
Don't read.
Yeah.
Is there any website that people can contact you, Andreas? Do you have a website or email address?
Absolutely. I can either write it down on a piece of paper, or I can just spell it out. It's www.siber dash or minus siber.ch. Yeah, Raquel, thank you.
Can we share your email or any email if they want to reach you out?
Sure. Please do.
Thank you.
Because those are all nice people that are listening in right now. Just maybe now and then give me a little time responding. But yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Brian. We have a lot of questions otherwise, but if you want to go around the shop first, go ahead.
Well, I'll probably, start showing some more rocks.
Sure.
And maybe one thing that's, when we talk about quartz, I think, amethyst may come up. And interestingly, amethyst really isn't a big thing in the Swiss Alps. We don't find much amethyst at all. And so, for instance, this is considered an excellent Swiss amethyst. I know by Bolivian standards, this is probably quite mediocre. But yeah, for a Swiss amethyst, this is actually a pretty good piece. But yeah, that's about as good as they get. And it's almost restricted to one or two very few places.
Yeah, but that's important for people who are collecting localities to understand where the quality range is for the Swiss Alps. So if they get a piece like that, or if they find a piece like that, that would be something, if they're collecting Swiss minerals, that they'd want to grab immediately.
Yeah, because the thing is, of course, I'm getting scientific now again, but amethyst requires some iron for the color, and granites are, in general, pretty iron-poor rocks. So that's why in our granites, you don't really get amethyst usually. But yeah, I just happen to have, this good piece here, and that's why, I figured I'd show you still. And then, of course, we do have other types of interesting quartz, sometimes not in the central parts in the granites, but in the peripheral Alps, we have more limestones, and there you can get pretty nice quartz too, which, is of this skeletal habit. So totally different from what you would refer to as Alpine quartz.
Wow. I love the variety. You could just sit there and collect Swiss quartz all day long.
Yeah, you could easily do that. And then, of course, let's see. We got another variety, and for being a little more, for covering all the quartz bases, I'll include that one too. And now and then it's also being confused with Gwindels, and it's the so-called Faden quartz. It's kind of a parallel growth, but there's no systematic twist, As you can see, it's just a flat piece.
Straight, okay.
And this is a Faden quartz. There's like a thin, Milky Way veil going through the piece, and in German you call that Faden. And that's the variety we also get. This has to do with movement in the cleft, during growth.
Well, now, Andy, it looks like with the Gwindels, the quartzes are single crystals that are doubly terminated.
Yes.
But with that Faden, it looks like the seam of the Faden in between the 2 points actually offsets them, and it actually looks like two different crystals that are growing parallel but opposite to each other.
That's probably just nature doing its weird work, because it can also be just perfectly doubly terminated looking quartz with this kind of
seam in the middle.
In the middle,
Gotcha.
The seam in the middle. All right, and then shall we move on to, let's see.
Andy, do you have any hematite?
Of course.
Yes.
These are world class.
Yes, they're amazing.
To be honest, right now, I don't have the ultimate piece that I once had, that would probably be an image, Brian, you could kind of pop
Actually,
in.
I have the image. I'm pulling it up right now. So maybe Raquel or Eloise can spotlight my camera. Andy, you can talk about this.
That's probably, that's an Alpine specialty that hematite in the Swiss Alps can form like those rose-like aggregates. We call it Eisenrose, which means iron rose. And this is a particularly wonderful example. I still have perfectly nice ones right here. For instance, this one doesn't have as much matrix, but I think you can kind of get an idea.
Oh, yeah.
Of the really rose-like growth that this shows.
Now, does the restriction of the clefts somehow contribute to the hematite forming that Eisenrose pattern?
Beats me.
Great answer. I would have answered the same.
No, this is, I have no idea if hematite in our cleft systems just prefers growing in those rose-like blades. It doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, for instance, here's a piece that's pretty wild. You have more single hematite blades covering this piece of quartz right here.
That's amazing.
And
so that's hematite on quartz.
Yeah, that's hematite just in like six-sided blades, just covering all the quartz. And sometimes you get single-bladed crystals as well. But yeah, it seems to prefer growing like this in the Swiss Alps.
Now, is there a altitude range in which the hematite grows that you won't find it outside?
Not altitude wise. I think this would be related to the rock it forms in.
Okay.
Like in pure clean granites, you may have hematite because there's just not enough iron to form, individual minerals. But otherwise, it's just a shape that might vary a little bit depending on where you are in the Alps.
Interesting.
And then maybe another specialty that's pretty sought after from the Swiss Alps is fluorite in pink color.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Because, of course, we all know fluorite in all the colors it occurs in, but pink colors worldwide seem to be, really rare. And in the Alps, they just happen to be usually pink. And when you have them on a specimen, that's actually pretty sought after. And so let me show you like a pretty large size specimen here, where you have those octahedral pink fluorites together with smoky quartz. So that's like the classic Alpine example, smoky quartz with pink fluorite on a piece like this.
Great.
And except for, of course, France in the Mont Blanc area, I don't think there's many other places worldwide where you can get this combination. I do have to say that the fluorites from Mont Blanc in France are nicer than ours.
Well, they're a little bit more saturated, aren't they?
Yeah, they get the redder colors.
Yeah. Wonderful. Andy, we're coming to the end of the hour. Do you want to walk us around the shop a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So,
quick question before you go. Any kyanites? Because Swiss is also well known for the kyanite, the three polymorphs.
yeah.
Any that you have handy?
Kyanites, there we do have, and it's pretty common to see it. Probably why you don't see it, offered in many places is it's usually doesn't occur in killer specimens. it's usually rock forming. So you get nice pieces, but not, super great specimens. That could be the reason why. So let me, kind of give you an idea where I was sitting. So
Wow, that's incredible. Oh my God.
I was sitting right here, and as you can see, I had many more rocks. If we had a 3-hour program, I could have probably shown a little more.
And so that the viewers understand, this is the shop that's out in the kind of greater Zurich area, and it doesn't normally have boxes and stuff like that on the floor. Andy's put those there so that he has them within easy reach for the show.
Yeah, we better don't have those boxes lying around. So these golds are not Swiss. So here's more Swiss, and maybe you can see, here's kyanite, but in more basic quality. You feeling dizzy already?
Yeah, Raquel's about to say, can you slow down a little bit?
How do you know, Brian?
I know you too well, Raquel.
This would be another showroom. And that's our safe where some of the specimens were in that I just showed you.
Now, what percentage of your inventory is Swiss, and I'm assuming the rest would be worldwide?
Yeah. I'd probably say, as you can see, there's also fossils here. Probably 25% is Swiss.
Okay. Andy, I think we're losing your internet connection as you're wandering deeper into the bowels of the shop.
Oh, signal.
There we go. We got you back.
Yeah. I was getting close to the edge of probably where I get the clean signal.
Wow, it's almost like a museum. I would imagine that kids that come in there are exposed to just a wonderful variety of Swiss minerals that would give them a certain amount of pride and curiosity, like you had.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we got this is one house. We got another house too, where we also have like pretty kid-friendly rocks as well. And yeah, no question, it's pretty popular with kids too.
Now, Andy, I know that every year that you bring stuff over to the TGMS show to put on a display?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the considerations that you go through in terms of deciding what you're going to bring to share with the public at Tucson?
I think sometimes it's, like I said, the example mineral oddities, where I thought, that is asking for Gwindels. But sometimes it's, either the show has a theme, like I think there were blue minerals once, right. And a couple of years ago. So I just thought, black, not blue would be a nice title for my showcase. So I brought all the Morions I had.
Great. And you
And
brought a gold. When did you bring that big gold piece?
That's a good question. Was it?
That was
four?
I want to say that was maybe
4 years ago.
It's longer than that. I want to say maybe 2016, somewhere around there.
Could be 5 years easily. And then last year it was about world-class minerals. And that's when I decided, okay, well, I'm going to bring Swiss minerals for sure, but I just want to make sure it's, also by our standards to be considered world-class or just top quality Swiss minerals. So, for instance, this piece here, which is probably, as nice as a quartz cluster can get. So this one was in Tucson last year, for instance, for the theme world-class minerals.
Fantastic.
But other than that, if like the show's theme doesn't call for anything particular in Swiss minerals, I might just bring something that was just newly discovered, where I thought, that's really cool.
Sure.
Some brand new finds, but it's, always a little hard to count on that.
Well, I know you always make yourself available to talk to people, and you're quite easy to find because you're actually quite tall. I don't think people get a sense of your height. Tell us how tall you are, and since it's a mainly American audience,
it would be, I think 6'6".
6'6".
Yeah.
Brian Lees looks at you and says, "Man, you're tall."
Well, whenever I meet Brian, we both say, "Oh, finally someone I can, look at eye to eye."
Finally, someone I don't have to look down on.
Right. Yeah, we feel really comfortable whenever we meet.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, we are at the point in the show where I've got 5 quick-fire questions for you. The audience has already seen these questions. They've answered what they think you're going to answer. And so now I'm going to ask you the 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
All of your answers are correct. We're going to see how well the audience predicted what you're going to say. So when I read you the question, it's your immediate gut reaction. You understand how this works?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Question number 1. Bellinzona or Zurich?
Zurich.
Zurich. Ooh, didn't take you long to think about that. Question number 2. Raclette or fondue?
Raclette.
Question number 3. How do you see yourself? As a strahler or as a mineral dealer?
Well, to be honest, nowadays it's mineral dealer.
Ah, okay.
In the old days, hopefully now and then strahler, and now and then these days a little bit, but yeah, to be honest, nowadays it's mineral dealer.
Fantastic. Question number 4. Wine or beer?
Neither.
Neither. Well, you got to pick one. Okay, so we understand you don't drink, but if you did, which do you think you'd go?
Oh boy, that would be tough. Probably wine still.
Wine. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go wine with the understanding that you don't really drink. And final question, skiing or hiking?
Hiking.
Hiking. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Eloise, are you ready with the answers that our viewers have guessed?
No, it's going to be Raquel tonight.
Oh, Raquel. Come on, Raquel, turn on your camera.
There
you are.
There you go. So first one.
Question number 1, Bellinzona or Zurich? Andy answered Zurich. What did our audience say?
60% of people knew he would choose Zurich.
Okay. Bing, bing, bing. Question number 2, raclette or fondue? Andy answered raclette.
Likewise.
Oh, nice. Question number 3, does the audience see Andy more as a strahler or as a mineral dealer?
They really saw him as a strahler. And I have to say, Brian, you didn't show some of the pictures that Andy shared with us where he's really up in the mountains, like incredible. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, here's a picture of Andy feeling very comfortable. And then I think, let's see. I got another. I love this picture. This is you and your wife, Katia.
Right. That kind of shows what we still do, It's mountaineering. That's, very important. And now and then I get to sneak in a little mountaineering in a place where we do find minerals.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Thankfully,
I'm definitely a strahler.
I love this image.
It's not mutually exclusive,
Yeah. This to me is just a wonderful image. It really kind of shows you what it's like to find something brand new.
Bring something to light and the dirt, and
it's fantastic.
And this also kind of shows you it doesn't always have to be up in the mountains.
Yes, absolutely. Not above the not in the snow line. Let's see. I want to pull up this image. Or actually, no, I think this one. This is, look at that glacier there. This is absolutely wonderful. And did you take this picture?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is probably the most beautiful, in terms of view, this is probably the most beautiful mineral locality in Switzerland. It's not for crystals, it's for this. This is a locality for lazulite.
Okay.
Which, perfectly nice stone, but it's more like an ornamental stone where you can cut things out of. And that would be the view you have from this locality.
Absolutely wonderful. Fantastic. I mean, yeah, I could see why you would absolutely love that. All right, let's go on to question number 4. Wine or beer? Andy reluctantly chose wine. What did the audience say?
The audience thought the same.
They thought the same. Okay. Yeah. And the final question, skiing or hiking? Andy said hiking. What did the audience say?
73% thought that he would prefer hiking.
Oh, interesting.
That is wonderful. So that is 4 out of 5 questions. Let's go to the Q&A section of this. I assume it's going to be Eloise who's asking some of the questions that our audience has.
Yes, so these questions are from the Q&A. I didn't go through the chat. We try to answer the questions in the chat as long as we were going, but we had lots of questions. So thankfully, Andreas gave you his email address. So if you have any questions, maybe you can send them directly to Andreas as well. The first question it was before we began the interview. It was from Peter McGaw, who told us to ask Andreas if the boog will explode quickly or not. The boog, B-O-O-G.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think many will know what this is about. To be honest, it will not explode at all this year.
Can you tell us what it is? We have no idea. It's so mysterious.
This has to do with in April, usually in Zurich downtown, there's like a festive day. It's called Sechseleuten. And for this event, all the guilds of Zurich get together and move through town. And like the finale would be to, it sounds kind of sick. They blow up a snowman-shaped puppet. I'm probably putting this a little wrong, but still. And this snowman figure is called the Böck. And this actually means booger. I really don't know how they come up. This is one of those things,
it seems totally normal to you, but when you hear yourself trying to explain it to people, you realize how outrageous it sounds.
Yeah, we must be some really strange people, everyone must think. But of course, right, with the current situation, Sachsileute isn't taking place. So yeah, this year again, just like last year, the Böck will not blow up at all.
Okay, I can put up the link in the chat log if you want to know more about the book. Next question from Dick Stakta. In 1983, his daughter went to Switzerland and brought him back an Adularia feldspar from Valval-Krubden, and is wondering what causes the green coating color.
So it's not either. It could be a coating with chlorite. That's very common with adularias from the Alps. So either it's a coating by chlorite, which of course is kind of a off-green color. In some localities, it may even have a slight bit of a greenish tinge, which is the adularia's own color. And it's actually a good question what causes that color. With Amazonite, we know it's lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a fair chance that maybe traces of lead could cause that color, because of course, otherwise chemically, Adularia, Amazonite are the same. But good question.
Well, thank you for trying to answer that, and maybe just show a photo to someone. I think that might be helpful as well to see if it's just a coating or if it's within the mineral itself. Howard Heitner is asking, do you ever see phantoms in smoky quartz crystal, like an inner darker crystal, for example?
Actually, you get them. You get them now and then. It's probably just when they have a really, saturated smoky color, the phantom is kind of hard to see in some cases. But yeah, I would say they're not that uncommon. They're just not that obvious, as they could be with a pure white quartz where any phantom will show easily.
Okay, thank you. And Peter McGaw had another question. What about Japan Law twins from Switzerland?
Hey, Peter. That's something that's really rare. Japan Law twin doesn't seem to occur with Friedlander quartz. So that seems to exclude Japanese Law twins. But in the peripheral Alps where we have, it's called Bombauer quartz, let's say the regular quartz that you have in Arkansas, for instance. In these places, you may get Japanese Law twins, but they're super rare. And I think when I think back last 20 years, I think I had one nice Japanese Law twin specimen from Switzerland. It was about, this big.
Wow.
Okay. So if you want to collect something very rare from Switzerland, I guess that's the one to try to find.
That would be one thing, yeah.
Bob Morgan is asking, are there clear closed Gwindels? Or at least not completely smoky. Yeah, they are.
They do exist, but white colorless Gwindels are much rarer than smoky Gwindels, light smoky, dark smoky Gwindels. And closed Gwindels are more rare than the open Gwindels. So it's like with every time it's more uncommon. So a really white closed Gwindel, that's pretty rare.
Well. Someone asked if you can explain the Tessin habit as well.
So I'll got it right here. And I'll take a point of similar size right next to it for comparison. So I think this shows quite well. This is what we would call a regular habit, where you have the prism faces, nice parallel to each other. And then you got the pyramid faces up there. Yeah, that would be, classic quartz crystal. But with the Tessin habit, you get steep rhombohedral faces instead of the just simple prism faces. And with these, the point gets smaller and smaller towards the top. And usually the pyramid faces are sometimes really tiny. And that's what we call the Tessin habit. And it's not the same as what you get from, for instance, from Colombia. Sometimes those crystals, they look a little similar, but it's not, I think in terms of crystallography, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, and it's nice and clear from what you show. Howard had another question. He visited the Strahler a few years ago, and he told him that the crystals from Switzerland never really leave the country because of very high local demand, and is wondering if that's true. If you have a shop, that means that people can still come and visit you, and even if they're not from Switzerland, they can still buy in the first place.
I think it's a good sales pitch too. We do.
I see.
Well, if you look at Swiss mineral collectors, it is true that the majority of them will prefer, Swiss minerals usually. Unless you really want color, then you will have to settle for foreign minerals as well. But we do have quite a few collectors that really only collect Swiss minerals. So that means, demand for really nice Swiss specimens is quite high, but they do leave the country now and then.
Thank you.
We do have some in collections. Actually, we have a lot. I'm sure Eloise.
I think so.
So yeah,
We have some nice ones as well. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, the British Museum has outstanding pieces, and they did make their way, all over the world, I think.
Yeah, and they still do. Steve Maslinsky is asking, are they Alpine claims permitted and regulated? So can you claim?
We have a pretty well-established rule for when you go looking for clefts, if you go strahlering. Actually, now is a good time, Brian, to show just one of the pictures that says cleft.
How's that one?
Why not? Or maybe one of the other ones. Nope.
Hang on.
One of the cleft.
How about this one?
Yeah. Okay. So this would be, a cleft still in the rock, not worked with, and you can see the quartz vein that kind of cuts across the rock. And so if you happen to discover this and you decide, okay, I'm going to work this place here and see if it's any good, you can put a tool of yours inside the cleft or right next to the cleft and use spray paint to kind of just put your initials right there. And with that, it means the cleft is reserved for you.
Okay.
In most places, it's reserved for 1 year or 2 years. So it's kind of has been an unwritten law, but it is kind of an official law that when a cleft is reserved, no one else is, allowed to go and work on it.
So it sounds like it's a lot based on the honor system.
Yeah, and it's quite well observed too, I would say.
That's nice.
Mm-mm.
And also, just to get a little bit of a scale in here, when you talk about a cliff, not everyone can climb to those places. I mean, it's not an easy task. So it's quite a scary job to be so up high in a completely vertical cliff, trying to get some crystals out of there.
Oh, I mean, that's, of course, one thing about strahlering these days. Strahlering has been going on in Switzerland for more than 400 years now. So let's say the easily accessible places, they have been visited, they have been, searched through. So if you really want to find something exciting and new, you either have to go places where hardly anyone else goes, and that means, up there somewhere in the vertical walls, or you go places where the glaciers have, retreated, which are usually dangerous places too. But yeah, it's kind of improbable to, find a great cleft right next to a hiking trail nowadays. So it means, you got to be really moving, you got to be comfortable moving in, vertical walls and all that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Like for instance, now we can skip that. There's one picture that's called Cleft 2.
Oh, go ahead. Do you have it, Brian?
If I can bother Brian again.
One quick sec. Here we go.
Yeah, that's an example. Those dark cracks you see there right in the middle of the image. I mean, those are clefts that haven't been worked yet, I think. But for that, in order to get to them, you would have to really, try and find a way to move around in that vertical wall and still be safe.
Yeah, this sounds completely crazy when you see it like this.
I would love to climb it, or I miss it. I miss Switzerland because of that.
And of course, the thing is, those clefts can be really small, and you manage maybe to get 1 or 2 specimens out. And then the next cleft may be, really far away, which means you have to move around a lot, for maybe finding a few things. There's not really places where you can just, open a quarry and, start mining.
Now, Andy, what is the season during which you can go up there and search for minerals? It's certainly not all year round.
Usually, the time when most strahlers get busy starts in August, September, maybe October if temperatures are okay, because well into July, usually you just have too much snow covering, all your places, all the rock.
So you only have 3, maybe 4 months of digging possible in the Alps.
Yeah, unless you have areas that are lower down, maybe exposed to the south, so they get more sun. And we do have areas where you can find nice stuff that's down at 3,000 feet. Of course, those places may be accessible in April or May already.
Okay.
But really high up, it's usually August when it starts getting really accessible, where not all the rock is covered.
We have so many more questions. I don't know if you have the time. Shields Flynn was asking that you did not mention occurrence of rutile, especially on hematite. Is this because it's more rare?
Sorry, what didn't I mention?
Rutile.
Rutile. Yeah. Okay. Well, we do have rutile, but usually not in like impressive specimens. It may be an accessory mineral to specimens, like especially with the Tessine habit. You may have rutile in nice, twinned inner growths, but mostly only in smaller, needle-like pieces. So it's not that common to have a nice showy rutile piece.
Okay, thank you. And maybe one last, which it's not an easy question at all, and I'm not sure that anyone has the answer to that. Eric De Carlo is asking, why are the Alpine fluorites octahedral in habit?
Yeah. Well, they're not always. I've seen dodecahedral pink fluorite as well. Just haven't seen pink cubes from the Alps.
Interesting.
I've seen pink cubes from Peru, so it doesn't seem to be totally exclusive, but good question.
Yep. So if one wants to do research, to do some research on that, please go ahead, because I'm not sure it's answered. If anyone knows the answer, please share it with us. I think I should stop here because questions are still coming in, and I will invite you to ask them directly to Andreas as he shared his emails, or that would be the easiest thing. Thanks for replying to my question as best as you could. That was Eric De Carlo thanking you. So yeah, thank you very much. We have a lot of thank you, plenty of thank you, and great session. Plenty of thank you in the chat. So from all of us, thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you all for joining 1 hour early. And I guess I will say bye-bye, and I will leave the word of conclusion to Brian, Raquel, and Andreas.
Andreas, I'm going to actually cheat because I have one last question that just kind of occurred to me. I know you have very famous clefts there like Lengenbach and Ziegenstock and with a Plangenstock.
Mm-hmm.
Can you site identify a specimen and know which kind of gorge those come from?
There are cases where you can kind of say, yeah, when it looks like this, I'm kind of also going back to this one.
Uh-huh.
This type of, like as an example, this slender type of dark smoky quartz is quite unusual for the Swiss Alps. So when you have those on nice white granite, it's pretty safe to say this must be a Rufibach pocket at Zinkenstock. Because usually our smoky quartz crystals are more chubby, So,
but now that's from the Rufibach pocket.
Yes.
In the Ziegenstock Gorge.
Actually, the Rufibach pocket is, you could say, near Zinkenstock Peak.
Okay.
So if a label says Zinkenstock, it's probably Rufibach pocket.
Gotcha. But then for the other ones, it's pretty hard to site identify where it's from.
In quite a few, in most cases, it's close to impossible to really pinpoint the cleft when you have a specimen in your hand.
Okay.
You can sometimes say, looks kind of typical for this or that, but again, it's mostly that would be quite speculative.
Wonderful.
Brian,
okay.
Can you try again to say that?
Say what?
Can you repeat the location, please?
I can hear the laughter in your voice. You're teasing me now. Darn you.
Sorry, Andy, I just have to say, he tries so hard to pronounce correctly every single language. In German, it's proving to be very difficult for Brian. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Raquel. I appreciate that. Not. Andy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to pull up a last image of such an iconic mountain.
Right.
Probably one of the most famous mountains on the entire planet. And this, of course, is the Matterhorn in Switzerland. I mean, absolutely wonderful.
And I should probably point out, this is also from a mineral locality. It's also
Can you pronounce the mineral locality for Raquel's pleasure?
Well, actually, it's a simple one. It's called Stockhorn.
Stockhorn. How's that, Raquel?
That's pretty close.
That's the bird that brings the babies, right?
Oh, that's the stork. The stork.
Yes. Yeah.
Stock. Stock.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of shows you also, looking for minerals is one thing, but enjoying the world around you, that just adds to it.
Absolutely. This is such an iconic image. It is so absolutely beautiful. So for those of you who have enjoyed Andreas's information sharing, there is a presentation that he did at the 2018 Dallas Symposium. And that is an absolutely wonderful presentation, one of the best presentations, if not the best presentation I've ever seen on Switzerland and Swiss minerals. And you can find that at mineraltalkslive.com/Stucki Dallas. And I know Andreas gets very embarrassed every time I praise him for what a wonderful job he did. But it is actually...
And I second that. I saw it live. It was wonderful.
You saw it live. Eloise, you were there. 2018 was the same year that you gave your presentation on the French minerals in the museum. So that whole series was a lot of international presenters. And if you look it up and you find Eloise's presentation, you get to see her in her very tropical dress. And it's quite lovely. That was a great year. So for all of our viewers, stay tuned. Tune into BlueCap Productions YouTube channel tomorrow, and we are going to be posting our episode 36 with Stuart Walensky. That was from Walensky Exquisite Mineral Gallery. This is the gallery that he has in the Chelsea district of New York City. Originally aired February 24th. It was an absolutely wonderful presentation. I think you'll enjoy that very much. That will go live tomorrow and come back next week, where we are going to have Kimberly Wagner, the director of the Gems and the Lyda Hill, Gems and Mineral Hall at the Perot Museum in Dallas, Texas. She's going to be on our show next week. So we are very much looking forward to that. Andreas, again, thank you very much. And for all you viewers out there, mahalo for tuning in. Have a fantastic week. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Au revoir.
Salut.
À la prochaine.
Thanks again, Andy. Really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. That was great.
Yeah. All right.